It's Thursday, June 27th of 2019, and there might be some big to-dos going on at Apple. I'm going to talk about that right here today on Guy's Daily Drive. Good afternoon, everyone. Ooh, we're starting to come into the rain. I was seeing lightning strikes a little while ago, and it looks like that weather that I was hoping to avoid is going to catch up to me. But speaking of thunderstorms, if this is true, and I just heard this afternoon, that Jony Ive, who has been a designer at Apple and has designed, or at least had his name on, most of the products that have come out of Apple for quite some time, 15 years or more, is leaving. And I don't know if it's because he's wants to do something else. I know he's talking about creating his own design firm, which, considering his track record at Apple, would be a pretty easy sell for a lot of companies. Get Jony Ive to design something for you. That's got a mark on it. Whether good, bad, or indifferent, people do know the name. However, what does this mean going forward at Apple? Jony was of the notion that everything had to be thin, thinner and thinner and thinner. And that didn't always work out so great for some of the products that he designed. iMacs, for example, kept getting thin at the expense of, I think, reliability, thin at the expense of repairability. Same thing with the MacBooks, or with Apple's laptop line. Everything had to be super thin, always going for thin. Well, thin is also a lot more expensive. And when you're talking about a difference in weight of just a few ounces over a product that may be just a little thicker, but could potentially cost a lot less, I'm hoping that if Jony Ive actually does leave, that someone will take his place that isn't going to just do the same thing that Jony did, successful or not, for Apple. I'd like to see some different designs. I'd like to see some difference in the way that Apple presents its products. And I think this is a prime time to do it. If Jony Ive actually is leaving, he will leave a legacy that most likely would be very, very difficult to, not so much to ignore, but difficult for somebody else to come in and leave their mark in the same way that Jony Ive has done. But there's really no way to know just yet. I mean, we're looking at probably, at the very least, 1 to 2 years before even any product designed by somebody other than Jony Ive leaves the company. That's how far in advance that big companies plan out their product lines. It's a couple of years in advance, and then they just wait for the tech to kind of catch up. And the internals are probably, well, certainly not the last thing, because you can't design the external of a computer, especially something like an iMac, without first knowing what it is that's going to surround it. You know, what's going to make it work. You can't just say, okay, this is now what the iMac is going to look like, and you guys have to make the motherboard and graphics card and power supply and everything else fit inside. Doesn't work like that. It's kind of a hand-in-hand thing. So, but this is huge news if he is leaving, and we will see where Apple goes with it. There's been a lot of talk that Apple just hired a new ARM guy, a guy that designed ARM processors for other companies, as well as working for Intel and AMD and a few others. So, does this mean that Apple is going to move the Mac to ARM? No, it does not mean that at all. I have been hoping and praying that Apple would move the Mac to an ARM processor for quite some time. And then a couple things happened that made me decide, probably not going to happen. One of those things has been the release of the iMac Pro and the release of the new Mac Pro. They took these computers in directions that pretty much says this is what we're doing for a while. There's no halfway mark here with computers like those. The other thing that made me kind of change my mind about it was seeing for the first time the iPad OS. And the iPad OS is not just a redesign of iOS for a bigger screen like it was for so many years. There's a lot built into the new iPad OS that says they are moving it toward being an actual desktop replacement. They're not just saying, okay, well, you can do this and you can do that, and if you think you can get by on this instead of a laptop or a desktop, then hey, that's great. This is basically a statement from Apple saying this is the computer that most of you need. This is all the computer that nearly everyone who uses computers needs to do the things that they want to do. And we're going to talk more about that tonight, hopefully, in the Mac to the Future live cast that'll be on Facebook. Of course, by the time you guys hear this one, it will have already happened. 8 p.m. We usually do it on Wednesday nights, but I had stuff that I had to do, so wasn't going to. Fire truck or something coming out here. Sorry about that. But I wasn't able to do the live cast last night. So hopefully I'll be able to do it tonight with Warren Sklar as one of the people I normally do it with, along with David Ginsburg. And of course, there is the MyMac.com podcast that I've been doing with Gazmaz for over 10 years now. We do that almost every single weekend. As well as, of course, this show, Guy's Daily Drive, which I hope will be out tomorrow by the time I get everything all done with it. MacStock Conference and Expo is coming up so quick. We're like 4 weeks away from the MacStock Conference and Expo. 170. If you use my coupon code MyMacGuy, MyMacGuy, you will get $70 off the regular price of this conference, and it will cost you a mere $179 for both days of this conference. That is like astounding. It's amazing. If you'd like to get a hold of me, guy@mymac.com is the email address, at least for now. You can reach me on the Twitters, MacParrot, which is the one I've had for a very long time, as well as VertShark, that is a relatively new one. You can find more information about all the stuff that I do over at vertshark.com. What else? I think that's about it. So thank you all for watching and or listening to Guy's Daily Drive. If you have anything that you want to tell me, use all those various ways I just talked about. You can get a hold of me there. And I will see you all next time, right here on Guy's Daily Drive.